Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Hoops with Noops, brought to you by the fine folks at FTN. I, of course, am Alex Noops Christensen, and I'm here to talk you through the NBA slate. As I mentioned, we're brought to you by the fine folks at FTN. I'm sure you're enjoying all the college basketball. March Madness really is one of the best sporting events in the world every single year, and you need the help of the FTN crew. They have absolutely been crushing college basketball. And now's a great time to sign up. Take a look at the ticker below. Usually that discount's only 10%, but we're running a special. Use the code FTN March. You get 35% off all the great data, tools, content, and access to the FTN Bets Discord, where you get all my bets as quickly as possible. Sometimes we even beat the market. You get a little bit of a better number. And all my player props. Usually those come out a little bit before game time. I try to wait till the injury news is a little bit more clear. Make sure you get in there. There's all sorts of great stuff. But I'm here to talk about NBA. Thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel. You get all the great free content that comes out. Shows like Mean Streets, a really great show where Chris Meany is just crushing the hockey season. Lots of great value from him just about every day. So check that out. And if you have any questions of your own, if there was something I missed while I was going through the games, or you just have something else, maybe a suggestion for what you'd like to see coming forward here in the future of Hoops with Noobs, put it down below in the comments section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'm always checking, trying to get your answers there again so I can help you out as best as I can, because that's what we're here to do. Let's get started. We'll walk through all the NBA games. There are 2 games I have bets in. The other 6, not quite for me, but I'll cover them in Not for Noobs, where I just try to give you an understanding of what I think about the game and why I'm avoiding it at this point. It's a great time in the NBA season. Again, March Madness is happening, but the madness of March is not just exclusive to college basketball. The NBA, it's seemingly every night we watch teams switch seeding positions. The play-in tournament starts with the 7th seed in each conference, and that race between the 6th and 7th seed, again, the 6th seed being the last team with a guaranteed playoff spot, is razor thin. It's a tight margin. You have 3 teams fighting for first place in the Western Conference. It's a great time to watch NBA basketball, but we're late in the season. We're up to 70-some games, 60, at least 65-plus games for all these teams. Injuries are starting to creep in. Unfortunately, Brandon Ingram had a really rough-looking knee injury last night. The team has mentioned he's out at least, I believe, a few weeks. We'll see what happens when we get some more official reports and they have time to run more tests. But fingers crossed, that Pelicans team is looking like a lot of fun, and I was hoping to bet them against the Clippers in the first round. But without Ingram, that's going to be really tough. Giannis Antetokounmpo, someone who's generally one of the more healthy players outside of a back injury towards the end of the season, I believe last year or the year before, has generally been pretty healthy, but he is struggling with a hamstring injury. That's one of the more difficult injuries because the only way to get better is to rest. And the Bucks want to make sure he's healthy for the playoffs, but without him, they might not have the best seeding possible to give them the best position. A lot of tough decisions every night. But let's get to it. Like I said, 2 games that I have bets in, and I'll walk you through the other 6 and not for Noobs. Let's get started with the Boston Celtics. They visit the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons 14-point underdogs at home. The total is 223. The Celtics are the best team in the NBA and one of the best teams we've seen in a long time. The Celtics are close to an 80% win rate, which is one of the best that we'll ever have in the history of the NBA if they can get to that 80% mark. Again, there are teams that have been better, but not many. Their point differential for this season in all wins and losses on average in every game, their margin is plus 11.5 points per game. That is the highest margin that we've seen since the 2015-16 Golden State Warriors. 2016-2017 Golden State Warriors, which featured Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, 4 Hall of Famers. Iguodala, I wonder if he'll get in. Maybe he will. I mean, Mitch Richmond is in there. What the hell? Let's at least get Iguodala in there, a champion and a great player. But that's really, I think, puts into context what we're seeing here from a historical perspective. I mean, it's a great team. They have Derek White and Drew Holiday, 2 fantastic guards. If even one of them is playing, it gives Boston a real advantage. They have both. 2 of the best wings in the NBA, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Again, with both, it's a huge advantage. Even having one is great. And 2 good centers. Kristaps Porzingis, obviously much better than Al Horford, but that's 2 guys that are smart defenders and good 3-point shooters to be on the floor. They are deserving to be big favorites in every single game. However, We don't know who's playing tonight. Drew Holiday is out. Jaylen Brown is questionable. Jason Tatum is questionable. And Kristaps Porzingis is questionable. If all those guys play, I still make this about an 11, 10-point game, which means I really like the 14 here. And as much as this is hard to do, sometimes you got to hold your nose and bet, eat the stinky cheese. And that's what we're doing tonight. I like the Pistons plus 14. Again, I have them inside this number, even if the Celtics are completely healthy. If they rest anybody, this looks like a really, really nice bet. And this will be a theme in the next game as well. It's just, you see the market here making some judgments on injuries and kind of, telling us they expect most of the guys to play in Boston, but we just really don't know. The Pistons having almost the exact opposite season. They basically have as many losses as the Celtics do wins, as many wins as the Celtics do losses. They set the record for most consecutive losses in a season earlier this year. But all the hard work is done, making sure they have the best odds for the number one pick next year. And now they can get back to trying to push these young players, guys like Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, to play good basketball and to try to win. Now, it hasn't translated into many wins. They have had a couple over the last few weeks, which is generally better than what we've seen from them all season, but they've been more competitive. They've kept these games close, and they've been pretty solid even at home. So I think, again, this is a nice bet if we see all the Celtics play. If any of them miss, I think it's a very good bet. So give me the Pistons here, plus 14. Next up here, another game with some injury issues, but you see it on both sides. And again, I think it plays a little bit to our advantage. Excuse me there. The Cleveland Cavaliers face the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves 7.5-point favorites at home with a total of 207. Cavaliers without Evan Mobley and without Donovan Mitchell. But they still have Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen. It's one of the nice parts about the way this team is built. As long as they have one of those guards and one of those big men, they have a great ball handler and scorer at point guard. They have a rim protector and a good defender at center. And somebody in Allen's case that is a really nice pick and roll partner. Him and Garland are playing very well together this season. I think this Cavaliers team is still very solid. Now, they're not winning games at the same clip that they have earlier in the year. Obviously, they'd be better with Mitchell and Mobley, but continue to get wins and to keep games very close and losses. It's a good team with a lot of depth, a good coach, and a solid system. They go up against the Minnesota Timberwolves that have been great. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. Anthony Edwards seemingly does something more insanely athletic every night. Rudy Gobert is leading the best defense in the NBA by good margin. They're the best defensive rating with a 108.4. That's points per 100 possessions. The second place team is 110.4. That's a 2-point difference. That's really big. Karl-Anthony Towns is out, but Naz Reid has been really good replacing him. However, Karl-Anthony Towns is out, as I mentioned. Edwards is questionable. Gobert is questionable, as is Naz Reid. Again, we don't know who's going to play here, and the Timberwolves are 7.5-point favorites. I think that's the market telling you that we'll see Anthony Edwards and one of Gobert and Naz Reid. But again, even if that's the case and kind of what I'm expecting here, I have this game closer to 3-4 points here. I like the Cavaliers quite a bit. Again, I'm not sure that they're going to win this game, but they should be able to keep this close. And if we get lucky enough to see either Gobert or Edwards out, I have this game pretty close to a pick 'em. If both of them are out, if somehow Minnesota is without all their best players, the Cavaliers should be favored here. So I like this bet given what we can expect now. And I think there's a lot of upside to it as well. Again, similar to what we did with the Pistons. So give me the Cavaliers here. I think they match up nicely. They have plenty of talent. They play good defense. This game has a low total, which is always good for underdogs covering the spread. Again, the lower the total, the more valuable the points. So 7.5-point spread and a 207-point game. That's a really nice number. That's more similar to, say, like a 9.5-point spread in a game with a total like 235, like we see kind of average in the NBA this year. So I like the Cavaliers here. 2 underdogs for me today. Again, Detroit and Cleveland. Now, 6 other basketball games. This is a section not for noobs. Of course, I'm Noops, and here's why these games are not for me. I just want to give you a little bit of the lay of the land, what I'm thinking, what I might be betting later, what I might have bet earlier. And a good example of that, if you're in the FTN Bets Discord, you're holding a really nice bet on the Raptors team total under. Oklahoma City goes to Toronto to play the Raptors. The Thunder 16.5-point favorites, the total of 230. The Raptors basically without everybody. No Scotty Barnes, no R.J. Barrett, no Emmanuel Quickly. Gary Trent Jr. is questionable. Jakob Poeltl is out. They're really going to struggle to score. We were able to grab a team total under of 107.5 this morning. Unfortunately, that line has moved too much. It's either 105.5, which really isn't value, or there's a 106.5 at a few places, but you're looking at a juice of like minus 120, minus 125. the price is just really rough here. So that is one of the benefits to being on that FTN Bets Discord. The Thunder are great. They are trying to hold on to the number 1 seed. They have the tiebreaker over Denver, which is why they're at first now. They need to win every single game to try to give themselves a chance at home court throughout the Western Conference playoffs. They have smashed bad teams like this all year. But I'm just not interested in laying a spread this big on the road. It's the beginning of a road trip for the Thunder. They could beat this team pretty comfortably, and they might win this game by 20, 25 points, but I'm pretty close to this spread here. I have them as about 17, 18-point favorites, which is the biggest spread my model has spit out all year, but still not big enough to call this an edge. So, unfortunately, had a bet I liked earlier, but the market has moved into place here. I really just don't see anything that I like in this game right now. New Orleans Pelicans go to Miami. Their second night in the Southern Florida back-to-back. The Heat 4-point favorites with a total of 209.5. New Orleans played last night in Orlando. And as I mentioned, Brandon Ingram took a really tough fall there, had a big knee injury, had to be helped off the court. Will definitely not be playing tonight. We know that the Pelicans, again, tough fatigue spot for them. That was a really rough game against Orlando. They had a lead early, basically gave it up, and the Magic looked really good. Miami, however, dealing with some injury problems themselves. Bam Adebayo is questionable. Jimmy Butler's finally back. If Bam can't play, that makes this matchup really tough. The Pelicans are one of the best teams in the NBA at attacking the rim. Zion is a great driver. Jonas Valanciunas, a great post-up player. So that Bam, things could be really tough for the Heat. But if he can play, this number makes sense to me. Again, I might have a wager on this later. We'll see what happens. If Bam is in, I expect the line to move. If he's out, I expect it to move. So we'll see where it settles. And if I do have any wagers in this game, you can find them in the aforementioned FTN Bets Discord. Which, again, sign up now. There's a 35% discount below. A very interesting game. Two of the worst teams in the NBA. You have the Grizzlies. They have had Desmond Bane back, but he's doubtful tonight. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to play, but there is not much other talent left on this roster. They go up against a San Antonio Spurs team that has been tanking pretty much all year, but the Spurs have a few-game lead, if you will, over the fourth worst record. Again, the bottom 3 records in the NBA all have the best chance for the number 1 draft pick. As hard as it is to say, I think the Spurs should be favored in this game, which is just strange for a team with really questionable motivations. This is just a really hard game to bet. The Grizzlies are playing just a bunch of random dudes every night around Jaren Jackson. The Spurs have actively been trying to lose games, so we have questionable players. We have a questionable motivation decision. I just don't know what to do with this. Again, all these numbers look right. I think the Spurs can win this game comfortably, but I just don't know how we bet on that. So nothing for me here. This game involves two of the teams that are toughest for me to handicap. The Indiana Pacers go to Golden State to play the Warriors. Golden State 5-point favorites, the total 240. And these are two teams that look wildly different from the start of the season. Indiana started as this fast-paced, volume 3-point shooting team. All of a sudden, they've slowed down. The three-pointers are less. The pace is less. And Tyrese Halliburton just does not look like himself. Pascal Siakam's doing a nice job as a small ball center, as a power forward next to Miles Turner. But there's just not the juice that this team had at the beginning of the year, and they're just much different. The Warriors, really tough start to the season, but have been much better lately. Steph Curry's having one of the best seasons he's ever had, even as he continues to get older. He still has the ability to take over these games and just crush teams with his ability to make seemingly any three-pointer he wants. Draymond Green is back to leading this team, playing great defense, and avoiding any unnecessary violence, and we hope that he does. It's again, as I mentioned earlier in the season when he was suspended, one of my favorite players of all time, and someone that just really frustrates me with his inability to sort of keep his cool. So hopefully he can do that, and this Warriors team should be really good going forward. Steve Kerr's done a great job balancing the lineups and getting Klay Thompson to accept a role off the bench, to get Chris Paul to not want to be a starter, not push hard here. There's a lot of veterans all rowing in the same direction here. I do have the Warriors favored here. I think they win this game, and they can do it comfortably, but I just don't know what to make of the Pacers, and I don't know how to trust this Warriors team. I've really got nothing here. The Los Angeles Clippers are still in Portland. They were Wednesday night. They are again tonight, and they are 13.5-point favorites. The total 217. My condolences to anybody that bet Portland plus 13 on Wednesday. That's where the number closed. I'm sorry, Portland plus 12 on Wednesday. That's where the number closed. The Clippers won by 13 points. It was just a really bad beat. Portland pushed hard. They won the fourth quarter 33-22, but just not enough. The market reopens here pretty much close to the same number, an extra 1.5 to the Clippers, but the difference between 12 and 13.5 is relatively meaningless. The total is just about the same here. The Clippers, a veteran team, don't have anybody on the injury report here, really. I thought this would be a spot. Maybe they rest some guys. They can beat this Trailblazers team without all of their best players, but they're pushing really hard to try to hold on to the 4 seed, which gives them home court advantage in the first round. The Trailblazers, just a mess, but still trying to win games, get their young players some experience here. Everything looks right. I kind of lean towards Portland again, just given it's the second time they've played and things really got close towards the end of that last game in terms of the spread, but I don't see any value here in this number. I think the market did a good job. My Philadelphia 76ers visit the Los Angeles Lakers. LA, 7-point favorites of the total of 224.5. A disappointing end of the season for both teams, but for different reasons. The Sixers have been a mess without Joel Embiid, as well as several other key support pieces. Nick Nurse trying to do everything he can to find a winning rotation to build around Tyrese Maxey, but just not enough ammo for them to really be good here. Maxey's doing well. He's pushing late. Has recently recaptured the spot as the favorite for most improved player of the year. We'll see if he can hold on to that or if Kobe White catches up. It's going to be an interesting race there, but the Sixers really have struggled. Once the 2-3 seed in the East, all the way down to 8th now, it's just really tough. They're going to try to fight, hopefully, to get back up to 6, but it's been a rough end of the year. The Lakers just really up and down. They've had spots where they've beaten good teams like Minnesota, but losing to teams like Golden State and Sacramento. In fact, they got swept this year. The Kings beat the Lakers in all 4 matchups for the first time in 8-9 years. Just a really impressive thing for Sacramento, but really more questionable for the Lakers. If LA plays their best basketball, they could win this game by double digits easily. But if they don't, a guard like Tyrese Maxey is the type of player that's really giving them trouble. So maybe Philadelphia can keep this game close. I really just don't know. I'm happy to let this one go. But the 2 games I did bet, again, give me the Detroit Pistons, plus 14. They host the Boston Celtics. If everyone plays for Boston, I think this is a good bet. If we see a few other players from Boston that are listed questionable rest, I think this is a great bet. In a similar vein, the Cleveland Cavaliers, plus 7.5. They're in Minnesota. If we have a full, healthy Minnesota team, like this bet. If either Edwards or Gobert sit, I really like this bet. And if somehow we're lucky enough to get both sit, I love this bet. So, 200 dogs for me tonight. Really like them again. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Again, any thoughts, questions, suggestions you might have, dump them in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Have a great weekend enjoying the college basketball. I'll be back on Monday with more Hoops with Noops. Best of luck until then.